Listen carefully, kid, because this will be the most honest thing you've ever heard. Change. It's a word that terrifies you. A word that makes your hands sweat, your heart race. Your thoughts scatter like leaves in the wind. You crave stability, comfort, predictability. You lie to yourself, weaving fantasies where you believe you have control, where everything stays the same if you just hold on tight enough. But here's the brutal truth you don't want to face. Change is inevitable, unstoppable. It is the one constant in a world full of lies and delusions. People love to talk about change as if it's an option, as if they can decide when and how it happens. They dress it up, call it growth when it suits them, catastrophe when it doesn't. But change doesn't care about your definitions, kid. It doesn't knock on your door politely, waiting for an invitation. It kicks the door down, uninvited, shattering your comfortable illusions and leaving you scrambling in the debris. You see, you have this idea that you're in control, that if you make the right moves, say the right words, choose the right paths, you can keep change at bay. How laughable. You build your little fortresses, layer them with comforts, with routines, with people you think will anchor you. But change is like a storm, indifferent and merciless. It tears through everything you've built, and no fortress, no matter how fortified, can withstand it. Your desperation to avoid change is exactly what makes it more painful when it comes. And it will come, kid. Sooner or later, it will come. You try to fool yourself into believing that you can resist change, that you can negotiate with it, bargain your way out. But change doesn't negotiate. It doesn't care about your pleas, your screams, your tears. It doesn't care if you're ready or not, if you're prepared or not. It comes when it decides, not when you're comfortable. It strips away everything you thought was permanent, everything you foolishly clung to, and it leaves you raw and exposed. Change is not your enemy. It's not your friend either. It's beyond such human concepts. It simply is. A force of nature as real as time itself. You hate it, don't you? The thought of losing control, of watching your carefully constructed life crumble to pieces. You hate the idea that no matter how strong you think you are, no matter how hard you fight, you will bow to change eventually. Because deep down, you know it's true. You've seen it in the faces of those who thought they were invincible. You've seen the moment when their eyes widen in realization, when the arrogance drains from their expressions, and they understand far too late that they are not exempt. That realization is a cold knife, a slicing truth that no one escapes. But here's the thing, kid. Some people understand this. They don't just accept change. They become it. They harness it, mold themselves to its shape, use it as a weapon while the rest of you cling to your sinking rafts. These people know that to resist change is to invite suffering, but to embrace it, to wield it, is to gain power that most will never touch. They don't wait for change to act on them. They act first, seizing the moment before it seizes them. They know that change will happen whether you like it or not, so they bend it to their will, make it serve them while you choke on the dust of your crumbling delusions. You've probably heard people say, change is good, haven't you? But that's just a lie they tell themselves to feel better. Change isn't good or bad, it's indifferent. It doesn't come wrapped in a moral bow, doesn't come with explanations or justifications. It just comes. It will take from you what it wants, give what it decides, and you have no say in the matter. You can scream at it, curse it, beg it, but it doesn't listen. It doesn't need to. Look around at the people who live their lives in fear, afraid to make a move, afraid to lose what little comfort they have. They cling to jobs they hate, relationships that suffocate them, routines that numb their minds, all because they fear the unknown, the uncertainty that comes with change. But here's the paradox they can't see, kid. In resisting change, they invite it in its most brutal form. The more you fight it, the more ferociously it strikes. Change doesn't punish the bold. It punishes the cowards, the ones who try to stay hidden, who think they can avoid its gaze. You, standing there, trembling at the idea of losing what you have, know this: you are already its target. Change tests you, strips you of your illusions, exposes who you really are when the walls come crashing down. Most of you won't survive it. You'll break, crumble, beg for a return to what once was, not realizing that the past is a graveyard. But some, the rare few, will rise, not because they were stronger to begin with, but because they learned to let go of everything they thought they needed. They know that change doesn't destroy, it reveals. It peels back the layers of who you pretend to be. And if you're lucky or cursed enough, it shows you who you really are. But don't think that accepting change is the same as being passive. No. The ones who thrive don't sit back and let change roll over them like a tidal wave. They dive headfirst into it, kid. They anticipate it, manipulate it, use it as a weapon against those too weak or too terrified to do the same. They don't hope for the best. They prepare for the worst. And when change comes, they are not victims. They are executioners. And you're standing there, hoping that if you keep your head down, change will pass you by, spare you because you weren't a threat. How naive. Change doesn't play favorites. It comes for kings and beggars alike. It doesn't matter if you're innocent or guilty, prepared or oblivious. It will strip you of your pretenses and leave you with nothing but the bare truth of who you are. And more often than not, you won't like what you see. So, what will you do when change comes for you, kid? Will you cling to your false securities, grasping at the ashes as they slip through your fingers? Or will you become something more, something unyielding, something that doesn't just survive change but commands it? Most of you won't choose the latter. Most of you will be too afraid, too anchored to the illusions that keep you warm at night. But there's always one, isn't there? One who understands that to live is to change, and to change is to dominate. One who turns the storm into their weapon, who takes what others fear and makes it their own. Change isn't the villain of your story. You are, with your cowardice, your hesitation, your refusal to see reality for what it is. Change is merely the mirror, showing you what you'd rather not acknowledge. It's the voice in the darkness that whispers that nothing you have is permanent, that every comfort is temporary, that the ground beneath you can shift without warning. And when it does, will you be prepared to move with it, or will you shatter like the rest? Don't think for a second that you can avoid change. Even now, as you stand there, listening to these words, it's creeping up on you. It's in every breath you take, every decision you postpone, every risk you refuse. It's watching, waiting, calculating. And when it strikes, you will either break or become something forged by its fire. In the end, change comes for everyone. It is the great equalizer, the force that doesn't discriminate. Whether you accept it or not, whether you fight or surrender, it will come. The question isn't if, it's when. And when it does, it won't care about your excuses, your fears, your pleas for mercy. It will only care about one thing, whether you are strong enough to meet it or weak enough to be devoured by it. So, kid, what will it be? Will you be the one left behind, clinging to the ghost of a past that never returns? Or will you be the one who stands atop the rubble, a victor, remade by the storm, unrecognizable, unstoppable? Most of you won't make that choice. But for the few who do, know this: you will not just endure change, you will become it.